Welcome to the Show Me Podcast with your host, Geoff Livingston. Every episode, a guest joins Geoff and discusses how images tell stories and what makes them work or not.
So, welcome to the Show Me Podcast, Jarrett. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. So, for folks that don't know Jarrett Hendrix, he is one of DC's favorite photographers, particularly on Instagram. But he's also a phenomenal artist. If you haven't seen his work, you should follow him on Instagram, either at Jarrett.Hendrix or Hendrix.Jarrett. He's got a couple of feeds running, and that's how much content he produces. He's prolific and amazing. But first of all, let me say hi.
Hello.
Welcome. How you doing, dude?
I'm good. Today's a good day.
That's cool. Yeah. So we caught up a little bit beforehand at the burger joint, but wanted to start off the show like we always do, talking about somebody else's work, somebody that you found influential, or some awesome photo, or some photo that was really horrible that made the news that everybody wants to talk about. And we're going to talk about Richard Avedon, and Marilyn Monroe, which you said is when we were doing the pre-game show, so to speak. You said that this photograph was probably the most influential photograph in your career, and I wanted to ask you why.
Okay, so my entire style of portrait photography is based off of one photo.
Wow.
And it's this photo that we're looking at now. It's a photo of Marilyn Monroe that was taken by a fashion photographer named Richard Avedon.
And he shot for Vogue for a long time, right?
He did. But this particular photo is, I believe it's a part of a series of photos, but this photo is the real Marilyn Monroe.
Right. That was his gig, right? Like he was always trying to capture somebody's real spirit.
Right. And so I believe that a lot of people, there's a time and place for everything. But for this particular style of photography, and I think the portrait photography has it really matters the relationship between the person who's taking the portrait and the person who the portrait is being taken of.
Right.
And that requires a certain relationship. And I think that was apparent in this photo because you get all of these glamorous shots of Marilyn Monroe.
Right. She knows how to do that.
Right. But this is the real Marilyn Monroe. And he was able to catch that spirit of Marilyn Monroe in that photo. And I've never seen anything like that. So when I take photos of when I do portraits, if edits are necessary, I do them.
Right.
But if they're not, normally it's black and white, very deep. It's after a conversation. It's after, building a relationship with that person, and then you take the photo.
Yeah, she looks almost, I think people know
beautiful.
that she was kind of like a little bit troubled, right? She had some ups and downs, if you would, and, obviously DiMaggio was a little bit of an abusive husband.
Right.
So this does seem to capture that kind of, that sadness, almost that forlorn essence. At least that's what it speaks to me with, right? Why was Avedon so good?
I don't know. I've always felt that portrait photography was special, and I take a particular pride in portrait photography because, first, I only take photos of portraits of people that I like.
Right.
So if I don't like your personality, then I won't take your portrait.
So that explains why you never took a photo of me.
But no, I think that portrait photography is special. Anyone can take a portrait. Like really, anyone can take a picture of someone, but I believe that you're going to take a great portrait of a person that you either love a lot or you really hate. So if you hate a person, if you really don't like them, you're going to take a great portrait of them because that's going to come out in that portrait. And portraits have that effect if you are the type of photographer that understands that.
Right.
So
it's funny. I was reading up, obviously, I like to prepare for the show. So I was reading up and I saw a Brooke Shields comment, and like he was known for some of his shots of Brooke Shields in the early 80s, and for our listeners. And Brooke Shields said when Richard walked in the room, it was like this immediate mutual tension occurred. and that when he walked in, the room would go silent because everybody knew that you weren't supposed to be talking and he wasn't talking, and that there was some sort of an emotive state that was happening. What do you think about that quote? I mean, that's crazy, right?
You have to, but you set the mood.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I know with my portraits is, what I usually do is, I have an icebreaker question, and anyone who has ever, I'm not going to tell you the icebreaker question.
Right.
But I always have a question that I ask people who I take portraits of to do something. They always ask them a question, and it guarantees a smile.
Right.
And if I say it now, then everyone who I take a portrait of from now on out are going to know, and they're going to anticipate it. But but you have a way of, and that's how the way that he approached it. But I approach it from a way where I treat it like a date.
Right.
So it's like,
you have good game then.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, well, I've heard that, and I definitely practice that too. Like when I'm shooting with models, or if I'm doing a portrait shot, I'm usually bannering the whole way. Like I want them as relaxed as
especially
possible.
with models.
Right.
Because if you want someone to pay attention to your direction, then you want them to follow your direction.
They have to like you.
Exactly.
Right.
And if you're uncomfortable, it comes out in your face. It comes out in the way that you position your body. It comes out in everything. So.
And so many photographers seem to not do that, or they're just like telling people to move left and right. I've seen this with model shoots with other photographers, right? And I've had models comment about that. Like some guys just like really make them feel uneasy.
I get a lot of stories about, it was say creep photographers.
Creepy. Don't be a creep.
Yeah, please don't be a creepy photographer. If it's not, even for like the models, if you are in a situation where you are feeling uncomfortable with the shoot,
you got to end it.
End the shoot.
Yeah.
End it.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
The photos won't be good anyway. Well, let's talk.
You probably won't get your photos.
Let's talk about some of your work and this shot, Retrospect, which is, I thought, a fantastic image. And it's sort of a portrait, but it's sort of not. It's sort of like artwork. And one of the things that we're going to talk a lot about today is eclectic style and hybridization and merging different elements from different types of photography, I imagine. Tell me what's going on with this shot.
Okay, I'm going to do a shameless plug because this photo that we're talking about right now is sitting outside the new Apple store.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's on a poster outside the store. Well, it's kind of a poster.
What is it, like they call those dioramas or
something like that, yeah.
Nice. Not so bad, man. How'd you get that gig? Never mind.
To be honest, I don't know.
That's cool.
I don't know. It just kind of happened.
They just emailed you one day.
They just emailed me one day.
That's cool.
Literally. That's what
great.
happened. So this Aya is Aya's her name. I bought the chair from the thrift store. I bought the studio.
Is this Creative Hands?
Yes, it was at my studio.
That's Jarrett's studio, Creative Hands studio, folks.
I bought the chair because I had this idea of, I was reading through Vanity Fair because I like Vanity Fair.
Right.
And I think the photography in Vanity Fair is amazing. So I usually use that to study like lighting techniques and just kind of look at just some of the pictures.
Yeah, do you re-engineer the shots, look at the catch lights and everything?
Yeah, I just look at them and try to figure out. But this particular shot wasn't done. It was just the background.
Okay.
And I liked the chair. So I went and bought the chair from the thrift store for $3.
Awesome.
So I started a series with hair. And this one was, this is a proof of after getting comfortable about a shot and how I'll do it, because people are wondering like, did I do something to have her head suspended, or did I do anything in particular? I was like, no, I didn't do that. All I had her do was lean forward and then throw her hair back and I catch it in midair. And that's how we do it. And we didn't do too many of them. This is maybe 2 or 3 of those tries and we got it.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't believe in shooting a lot.
Yep.
We did it.
So you're disciplined.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Because if you once you start something like this, once you start doing it over and over and over and over again,
the emotion.
Right. After the 100th time you've done it, it's like, I don't feel like doing this anymore. Why are we doing this? So that's the story behind this one. And she loved it, and apparently other people love it too.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
So.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I love there's a lot of emotion actually with it. So let's talk about this one too, because it's also in that portraiture vein.
So that is Lita, and she is a photographer also.
Right.
This came out of.
You don't have her eyes showing though.
I do not have her eyes showing.
Right.
Because we were going for something dramatic, and the light technique that I use in this. So we're going to talk about technique too. So the technique I use here is I put the softbox on the floor, and I propped it up with another light because I didn't have anything that low, and then shot one light from the bottom for this one.
It's got a very noir feel to it, actually.
What is that?
Like the controlled light, almost like a can light coming down.
Yeah.
Although it's coming up, obviously.
But I use a softbox for this one because I figured that the hat is going to. It's not necessarily going to reflect the light, but it's going to hold that light on her face. And because she had dark color lipstick and it was going to light up her shoulders, and that's what I was going for, is the shoulders and the face and kind of like this light here. I didn't know at first it was going to be exactly like that, but I think this was done in like one shot again.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't do too much.
Right.
So,
but you do much more than portraiture. Like, how does your other work affect or provide like insights into doing something like this?
So I don't know, man. Like I have I guess we can go into this. I have a different way of taking photos. So for the photos that are outside of this,
Right.
And I did a session at the Apple Store, and the title of my session was "Story First, Photo Second."
Right.
And that's how I approach photography. Is that I don't.
So you show people stories rather than just tell them?
Exactly. So I come up with stories first. Like the idea for a photo exists way before the photo exists.
Does it gnaw around in your head?
It does. So I write the story, or I have the story in my head, or I have an idea or something that I want to talk about, or whatever it is that I'm feeling. And then the photo is a visual representation of that story. And I take photos now for work, if I have to shoot a building or something like that, or somebody wants me to take a picture of them. But for my personal photos, the story exists prior. And it's sort of like how an artist paints. So if you look at it, most art start with a blank canvas.
Right.
And in that blank canvas, you kind of, you put the colors on that canvas and you create you create that piece of art from that blank canvas. Well, in photography, the canvas is already there, and you're just kind of using the things around you to capture that moment to tell that story. And most photographers go out, they see something they like, they take that photo, and then afterward they say, oh, well, this is why I took it, because I liked it, or because this colors were like this and the colors were like that. But if you had a bad day, for example,
right,
and you weren't feeling good, or you were, if you had a fight with your cousin or friend or wife or husband or whoever, right, and you wanted to show that in a photo, how would you do it?
Wow.
And you really think about that. And you go out and you want to explain that. Like I talk about my son who has autism.
Yeah.
And
how old?
How old is Brian? 6.
Wow.
Because I have 3.
Wow.
So
God bless you.
I have a daughter and 2 sons. So 8, 6, and 3.
Oh, cool.
So I talk about my son, and it's kind of like a way for me to vent. And I talk a lot about autism. So some of my photos are visual representations of those stories.
Wow.
So if you follow me on Instagram and you read my captions, most people know that the captions are rather long, and then it goes to the photo.
But that's working for you too, because you got a lot of followers, right?
It worked. Yeah, I mean.
Well, we had this conversation before the start, but for folks who don't know, Jarrett's got like one of the larger accounts in town, and it's because you were early, right?
I was early.
First.
Not the first, but I was early, pretty early on Instagram, where it was, it was a different Instagram back then.
Right, but you were good too, so they found you. Come on.
I guess.
Come on. He's too humble. Hold on, I got another one I want to show. So let me do a better job of describing these for the people that are just listening. So this one, we've got a...
so that's not real.
It's not real? Is it
no, it's not real
superimposed
at all.
afterwards?
So
we got... Well, let me describe real quick. We got this road. We've got trees. It looks like it's early spring, or it looks like the leaves of some of them have fallen, or they're not all the way on yet. and we've got a lot of fog and a woman with an umbrella walking right down the road.
Correct. So that is a composite.
And which parts were real, or which scene was the woman superimposed in there?
Yes.
Okay.
And the shadow, and the road, and some of the fog.
So it was a vision.
It was. I travel I have a full-time job, and I travel for my full-time job. And so there's a story behind this photo. So the story existed first. This creation or this piece of art. And I travel for my job. And this particular time, I worked in Jarrett County, which is way out west in Maryland, right?
Okay.
And when I travel for my job, way out in Jarrett County, it's kind of lonely out there. Mm-hmm. And so the larger scale of the photo is in Frostburg, in the Frostburg area, I think.
Right.
And it was this road, and I just kind of was driving around. I usually try to drive around the town and find photo spots. And I found that spot, and a friend of mine, that's another, there's another photographer. Her name is Jen. It's Jen Write Me Out on Instagram. And I took that photo of her a very long time ago. And that is a representation of me. Because I felt sometimes you're in your hotel room, you're by yourself, nobody's around. Like, I miss my family and my kids and stuff. And I was like,
so this is really about loneliness.
Yeah, it was about loneliness. And that was how I felt.
Wow.
And that is just, that's how I felt when I was sitting in my hotel room when I made it.
Wow. It actually captures the spirit pretty well.
So, yeah, that's where that came from.
Interesting. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it in was because there's obviously a person in there, but it was a departure from the portraiture and the portraiture style, which is something I see a lot in your photography. Is like you take what you want to take, or you do what you want to do. Like you'll do a street shot, but then you'll do a composite.
Yeah, I mean, it's because the thing is that people. I know I had to discover like my purpose in photography, and I always say my purpose in photography is to tell stories. And like the photography, okay, I guess I'm a good photographer, right? I can take pictures, I can compose photos, and I know about colors, and I know about the rule of thirds and how to compose a proper photo. That's great. Those things are teachable and at a point. But then you do have to have the gift to do it. But for every photo, that story behind that photo is what really matters.
Right.
Like the picture is just what it is. And to me, at first I was so focused on the picture, that became so much more powerful, and that wasn't a good thing. Like I could take a picture of anything and people will like it. Right. But what does it mean, the next day?
What's the story? What's the value?
Right. And when you hear the story behind a photo, then you're like, oh, okay, well, it makes a little bit more sense after hearing that story. And to me, the story is more important than the photo, much more important, and it will always be. So
it's true. And I think like great photos make you ask, what is that story? Right. And you try to figure out. So speaking of, our next image is it looks like you found a little miniature car, taxi. Yep. And now that you have kids, it's probably one of your kids' taxi.
No,
cars.
It's actually mine. So they become mine's first. So this is the thing. So when I go and get these cars, when I have an idea for a photo, because I like photographing cars in the middle of the streets. Right. So like that's what I like doing.
But you put this little bitty car in
this. Yeah, it is. It's a mid-size. It's not like a Hot Wheels size. This is like a mid-size. Because the Hot Wheels size looks like a Hot Wheels size.
It's true.
These are a little more like the
realistic.
They're a little more realistic than a Hot Wheels size because the camera doesn't get that low.
And this is downtown DC.
That is downtown.
Yeah.
So this particular one, the car, I usually get the car first, and then I'll take the photo with the car, and then my sons get it. And then they just destroy it because the bumper's gone off of this. I think the door's gone. Yeah, but I try to get it first. But this particular photo, I just like cool photos of cars.
Yeah.
But the experience of taking this photo was different.
Because you were on the ground, right?
I was on the ground, and that is a highly traveled area because that's the portrait gallery in the back.
Oh, man.
And that's a street that's pretty busy. So I had to keep running out and running back and running out and running back and running out. This lady watched me the whole time. And then I took the photo. But it was an interesting photo to take. And then my pants got wet in the rain.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's,
part for the course.
Spoils of war.
That's right. So, look, how do these ideas pop in your head to do? How do these ideas pop in your head to do this?
I don't know.
You just wake up.
I just wake up,
Wow.
and I have a book. I have a composition book where I have shots that I haven't taken yet that I want to take. Like for example, if you're driving on the George Washington Parkway in the fall,
Right.
there is an overlook, but you can't get to it unless you walk.
I know where you're talking about. It's down the south side.
Is it down the south side?
Yeah,
not the scenic overlook.
Not the
It looks
scenic-
over the road. It's a road that it looks over. I can't remember the road that it is, but it's one of the breaks in the road on the GW Parkway, one of the bridges.
Yeah.
But it overlooks a road. But
It's on the north side then. That's Glebe Road.
I think it's Glebe Road.
Right. I know where you're talking about. It's up by the chain bridge.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it's that shot there. But it's almost, I tried to do it one day, but then it was snowing that day. And then it was just hard to get to it. Mm-hmm. But that's one shot that I want to take that I can't take. I've written it down, but it's, I have to wait for the perfect day. So you just write them down. When it comes, it comes.
There you go. Love that. Now we're going to change style again, and we're going to go into architecture. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is the Supreme Court?
No, this is this the Supreme Court or National Archives? That's the Supreme Court. It's the Supreme Court.
Right, because of the big
National
pillars.
Archives, yeah.
Yeah, and the door. But it could be...
It's the Supreme Court.
Wow.
I took another photo that night. I'd never taken... There's a shot that people usually take of the Capitol where they get the right there where that little plate in the ground is with East
the
Capitol
reflection,
Street.
yeah.
No, where it's like the sign for East Capitol Street, the arrows and things like that. I'd never taken that.
Right.
And I was like, oh, let me go and take that shot, right? I was like, okay. So I went to go take that. And then as I was walking back, I looked at the Supreme Court and I was like, wow, the sky is kind of purple tonight, which is pretty cool. I would imagine that this would be purple also. And it was really late, and I did not feel like walking over there. And I was like, if I don't go now, I'm never going to go. The sky's not going to be this color. I guarantee you it's going to be purple when I look up there. So I went to go take the photo, and I think I wrote something about that. But I had an experience with the park, as a park police officer.
No surprise there.
The U.S. Capitol Police officer there.
Did you have a tripod?
No, but I was laying on the ground. And he was wondering why I was laying on the ground. I was like, well, if I don't lay on the ground, then I won't be able to get the shot this way. And then I showed him the photo, and he was like, oh, that's really cool.
Never mind, sir. Please keep taking those.
So it worked out. But, so if I would suggest that if you have any issues with any of the, U.S. Capitol Police officers, show them the photo.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're cool about it.
So yeah, you decided to shoot up, and you got the pillars, and it's this epic, awesome image, and really kind of highlights the architecture in I would say, an unconventional way for your average Supreme Court shot, right?
Yeah, I like looking up, and then I also I use a lens that not a lot of people use. I use a 15-30.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is
so this is fully open.
Fully open at 15.
Yeah.
And for DC architecture, it gets you what you want.
So let me ask you a question. When people ask you, what kind of photography do you do? What does a guy like you say? I mean, I'm in the same boat. I photograph what's interesting in front of me. If I like it, I photograph it. If I don't, I won't. And therefore, I'm all over the place. I'll do landscapes. I'll do street. I'll do portrait. I'm doing events. I showed you a sporting event photograph before this. What do you say when they say that to you?
So my business card doesn't say photographer. It says artist. Okay. And I guess that can be, it's always this thing where people always ask whether or not art is photography. Mm-hmm. And I think that photography is photography and
right.
art is art. Okay. But it's all about your approach. It can be both.
Right.
So it's all about your approach. It's whether or not, it's how you feel about your work. Because if you say that I'm a real estate photographer or I'm a portrait photographer, then you pigeonhole yourself.
Right,
you pigeonhole yourself, or you box yourself into being that. So when people reach out to you, especially if you're trying to market your work, They're going to market you as that particular type of photographer. I mean, and that goes to social media too. I mean, social media, like people want to know, oh, how do you get a lot of Instagram followers, right? Just be consistent.
Right.
If you're consistent and you do the same thing over and over and over
You'll
again,
definitely make a name for yourself.
You'll make a name for yourself for that, and you'll have a lot of followers. That is how it works. I mean, that's just what it is. If you're a portrait photographer and you're really good at portraits, and all you post are portraits, and all of your portraits are really good, and you have a style of portraits, and you keep doing that, people are going to like your portraits, and people are going to follow you, and people are going to ask you to shoot work for them. People are going to ask you to do things for them. People are going to follow you. People are going to support what it is that you do. But the people that are going to support you are only going to be those people who like portraits.
Right.
And that is who your audience is going to be. So if you want to market, if that's your target market, then there you go.
Right.
You know, and you'll get 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 followers doing that. If you do architecture and that's all that you do and that's all that you post, you will get a lot of followers doing that. And you will get a good audience doing that. It's just those are the people that are going to follow you.
Yeah.
And you have to just keep doing that.
Yeah. If you move off of that, then you get nothing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, you know, I mean, that's just the nature of our society today. That's what people like. People like what they like. They don't like what they don't like.
Yeah.
You know. Go ahead.
So how do you handle that though? Because you kind of first of all, you've built multiple Instagram accounts to some extent to handle that. Is that right?
Yeah, I did, but you know, at first I cared. Now I just don't care.
Yeah, that's
you know, I don't. I used to care. Like I used to try to be consistent and you know shoot what I shoot. And at the beginning, earlier in Instagram, like you could be different. You could shoot one thing, and you could shoot this, or you could shoot that, or you could shoot other things, you know, and you would gain followers there. So like most of my followers are people who, you know, are in DC because I started out, you know, shooting a lot of the monuments and capitals and sunrises and sunsets and things like that. That's what I like shooting, you know, and I still like shooting those things. But most of the people that follow me like those things. Right. So if I shoot a sunrise at the monument, like they're gonna like that. Right. But you know, but I have to understand as a photographer, for example, and then I have people that support my work, that when you are an artist, you do have a responsibility, and your responsibility sometimes is to deliver that work that people want. Right. You know, you give them, you know, if you're
especially if you're getting paid, right?
Even if you're getting paid, but
it's
even
work
if
for
you're
hire, right?
Right, but even if you're not getting paid, it's still a good idea to share the work that your audience wants to see. Right. Because if they want to see it, give it to them.
Yeah, you gotta keep them engaged. I kind of do personally. One of the things I do is I'll go off and do what I want to do for a little bit, but I will make sure to come back. I won't go for too long.
Right.
You know?
Give them what they want to see. If they like it, you know, people like my sunrises from the National Mall. Like they like it.
Who doesn't?
That's
right?
why you know, a lot of people, that's why they follow me, is because I used to post, you know, I would post sunrises from the mall because that's the way that I went to work. And then I got a better job and now I don't go that way to work. Right. But when I do, you know, but that's what people like and I like it too. So, you know, every once in a while it's a good idea for me to just take that and give you a good sunrise.
Sounds good. All right, so let's talk about this photo here, which is kind of like this is another architecture shot, or it looks like one, and it's got almost an infinity effect going on. It looks like it's a tall building, and you're shooting up.
So that's not real.
It's not real. Is it completely manufactured?
Oh yeah, completely manufactured.
So is that graphic design?
Sort of. It's so if you've ever been to the Museum of the Bible, because now you'll see this. Yeah. When I'm talking about it. If you've ever been to the Museum of the Bible and you go up all the way up at the top, they have that part that looks at the monument, the little kind of curved kind of glass thing. That was created from that. Wow. And I always say, put it down, flip it, and reverse it. That's kind of what that is. And it's created from that. So what I do is I take architectural photos, buildings, shapes, colors, whatever it is that I can find, and I take those things and I put them all together and then make something. That particular photo that we showed was I was watching Thor. Yeah. And that's kind of like that bridge. If you're looking down at the bridge in
The
Thor.
one with the time where Idris Elba's always out there.
That's just the bridge. It's
Yeah.
just that bridge in Thor. It's not any particular movie, just that bridge that's usually highlighted in Thor.
Let's talk about this landscape, or is this a composite too?
It is a composite.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it's got a few things going on here.
It's a whole lot of stuff. So to explain this one, the sunrise is real, totally real.
Right.
And it's a sunrise over Jamaica.
Ooh.
Well, slightly over Jamaica. I went on a vacation last year with my wife, and we missed our flight, our early flight to go to Jamaica. And you have to fly to go to Jamaica. You fly to Fort Lauderdale to go to Jamaica usually. So we ended up catching a later flight, which we had to kind of sleep over in Fort Lauderdale and then catch a morning flight to Jamaica. And so because we caught a morning flight from Fort Lauderdale to Jamaica, I was actually able to get a photo of the sunrise from the plane.
So is that are those crepuscular rays actually from that sunrise?
Yes, it is.
That's awesome.
The mountains, I drew the mountains, drew the people, drew the tree. Well, I have this app that makes trees like, I can't remember the app it is, but it makes you can take a photo of a tree and it'll make it like a vector image. So that's a photo that I took of a tree. Then I drew the people, I drew the ground, and then I flipped it, and then
you blurred the
it in
base to make it
Photoshop.
to make it look like a reflection.
But that is actually the story about that photo is about captions and about how I fashion my captions before the story. So that is a representation of how I put together captions.
Well, what did the caption say?
The caption was a story about someone that I talked to about the captions that I do. And
So
about how
it's a meta caption.
it is. It's about how I don't plan my captions. I just write them on my phone. And I type the captions on my phone. I was like, oh, okay, here's the idea. I got the photo. Okay, type it up on my phone and then put it on the post.
Yeah.
So it was about a phone conversation that I had with someone about the captions.
Very nice. Very cool. Well, I feel like I've learned a lot about your stuff today. I hope folks have enjoyed it. Is there anything you would tell folks about photography before we split, or where they could find you, or stuff like that?
I guess you can find me on Instagram, Jarrett.Hendrix. That's JARRETT.HENDRIX. And it's the same thing backwards. So like Hendrix.Jarrett. One thing I guess I will leave everybody with is that I think that, learn photography, right? Know the rules of photography.
And then break them?
And then break them. But you have to know the rules. You do have to know the rules. But also, a lot of times people are trying to find their place in photography. And like, why do you go out and take photographs, right? And figure that part out first. Like, create your art, but like, why do you create art? When you become an artist, like, you have a responsibility. And your responsibility is to deliver that art to the world and to tell a story that is compelling, that is honest, and also you want to make sure that you do it well. But make it make sense. Like, I had someone tell me in passing, right, that they like my photos because they mean something. And they said it in passing, but that meant a lot to me. Is that, you just want to make sure it means something. So when you take a photo, make it mean something.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you produce next.
It's going to be about this.
Very cool, man.
Thanks for listening to the Show Me Podcast with Geoff Livingston. More shows, sponsorship, and donation information are available at showmepodcast.com.